Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV podcast. This is episode 37, the week of March 8th, 2024. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads,
What's up?
how we doing?
Today was a Monday on a Friday.
It was indeed.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm just glad it's the weekend, so I don't have to think about my job for 2 days. Oh.
So, you might have noticed that we have been off for the past few weeks. We had things happening IRL. I moved. Mainly I moved. And this stresses me out so much that I could not both move and do this podcast. So, here we are, and I'm back.
Wait, you're back?
I'm back. It's true.
How much of you is back, though?
I would say a good 85%.
Well, that's good.
That's good. Yeah. I can't promise more than 85% people.
It's a passing grade. It's fine.
Yeah, like, that's me on a good day. Like, I need you all to understand that. This is what I have to work with. But so we shouldn't have any more breaks. Hopefully. And we can continue on into the year of our TV. But since we've been out for a couple weeks, we get to catch up on news.
Yes.
But I haven't been paying attention to the news. So, Mads, what has been going on? What do we got? What do we have?
Oh man, you decided to ask me. I pay only sort of attention to news. Um, I usually let you do most of the legwork on this. So the things that I know are not very big in number. um yes, I will say this. Yesterday the creator of Our Flag Means Death announced on his Instagram that all talks had been exhausted with other streaming services and that there was no way forward for the show to go. So that this was the official goodbye, which is really sad. And the way he worded his message makes it seem like HBO did not want to get rid of the property. So they probably jacked up the price, and there were streaming services who wanted it but couldn't afford it.
Right.
Which sounds about right, because that's where streaming is at these days.
It is indeed.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they delete all remnants of it from their streaming service soon, because that's just what they do these days. Luckily, I have a downloaded version of it, so it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Trying to think of anything else.
Well, in other cancellation news,
Yes,
and this was a little farther back, but it was announced that the upcoming season of Evil was going to be its last. Paramount Plus.
Yep.
That is a show I'm not surprised would not get shopped around somewhere else because it is a weird show.
It is a very weird show. And honestly, we're lucky we got the number of seasons we got.
Right. Yeah, no. Yeah, like, I remember thinking the same thing when Hannibal ended.
Mm-hmm.
And it's of being like, do you not understand that 3 seasons was a miracle?
Yeah. Other news, they officially renewed Avatar: The Last Airbender for seasons 2 and 3, which is good news considering, it being a live action of an animated series that had 3 seasons, it gives us hope that we will get a complete story.
Right.
Um, so that's good news. The other thing that I had to remind myself about was they announced that Mayim Bialik and Jim Parsons will be making an appearance in the series finale of Young Sheldon as the adult Sheldon, and obviously, I forget Mayim Bialik's character, Amy. So that's interesting. I've never really watched Young Sheldon, but that seemed to be like a big news thing for people. So I'm just like, okay, sure. I'm not sure how that works because again, I've not watched Young Sheldon, so I don't know how much they rely on context from Big Bang Theory. So,
Well, the way, like, I know that, like, he narrates it, like,
mm-hmm.
um, like older Sheldon narrates young Sheldon,
Okay.
but I don't know. I don't think there's like an emphasis on like modern, like, you know, 2010s
Right.
Big Bang Theory in young Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine most likely that's going to be like, you know, flash forward in like the last 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping it's gonna be. Like, just because I get annoyed with stupid things like that when they have
Mm-hmm.
spin-offs of things that happen in the past from the original series. So
Right.
it's like it's very I'm fine with fan service as long as it's not like literally like shoving it in your face. And I feel like doing things like that can sometimes be shoving it in your face.
Right.
Um but the other thing that I wanted to mention was I don't know if you were interested in Ripley that's coming to Netflix. Um,
Mm.
I was because I have read a couple of the books and like I've seen Ripley at Thomas Ripley in a couple different iteration movies. Like The Talented Mr. Ripley, all these things. Anyways, and I'm newly obsessed with Andrew Scott, so like it looks so good, and the trailer, like, it's black and white, so like it's very film noir, and I'm just like, I'm kind of digging this vibe. I'm kind of excited for it, so we'll
Yeah.
see. But yeah, I never watched Fleabag, so like I'm very late to the Andrew Scott train. Um, but yeah, he's very talented, and he looks like the perfect casting for this character. So
Yeah, Fleabag does more for me in terms of Andrew Scott than like Sherlock ever did.
right.
His Moriarty is a very good Moriarty, but like
It
it's
is.
very
And like
shouty though.
so like I was aware of him, but like I really really latched onto him. I finally watched All of Us Strangers and I'm like, you're a very good dramatic actor. And so I'm like, okay. And so then I watched the trailer for Ripley and I'm like, nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
um
Uh,
there was
well,
another.
well, to go back to CBS real quick.
Mhm.
Uh, there was an announcement that there's going to be another NCIS spinoff centering around Tony and
Ziva and
Ziva.
Tony.
Yeah, Tony and Ziva from the um, flagship show. Many years after both of those characters have left it.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
A few years ago, I would not exactly how I feel about it. Um,
Yeah.
Today, with the Michael Weatherly of it all, no, I just don't care.
Mhm.
And also,
Yep.
a main character who's former Mossad. It's it just ain't the moment, guys. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It's just 10 years ago, you probably could have gotten away with this, but today, I don't think so. No,
Yeah.
no. Uh, it is a hard thing of like I really enjoy that dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that I necessarily want to see this in today. Um,
Yeah.
but to go back to Netflix real quick, um, Netflix canceled The Brother's Son, which I watched a good bit of that first season, and
Mm-hmm.
I, even by Netflix standards, I don't understand this cancellation because it was consistently in their like top five,
Yeah.
like for weeks, and it's Michelle Yeoh. Like we can't
Yeah.
get like Michelle Yeoh can't survive on Netflix.
Here's the thing. The streaming universe is imploding on itself right now, and and we're watching it happen in real time. And so like it's going to be interesting to see over the next like year where streaming ends up, because like I feel like we're going to end up in a very dark place for a little while.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um but the other announcement I wanted to talk about was last week. Was it last week? Was it into February last week? Yeah, it was. Anyway, last week they announced that the next season of Only Murders in the Building will star Eugene Levy. And I personally feel like that is a personal gift to me. And so I thank the Only Murders in the Building gods. Thank you so much for giving me Eugene Levy.
Mm,
So yeah, it'll be interesting.
yeah.
He's
Yeah.
such a good actor, and he knows Steve and Martin, so like it's going to be very fun to see that dynamic.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention here, and this is perhaps more niche, um, but Rooster Teeth, which became a part of Warner Brothers a number of years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but was officially shuttered by Warner Brothers. Um, and Rooster Teeth is a very popular staple of the online web series um, business.
Okay.
They made Red versus Blue and Ruby. Um, they had a strong podcast presence, and they've done a number of things over the years. But Ruby and Red versus Blue has kind of been like their claim to fame.
Mhm.
Um, and they were the model for like online web series, profitable and successful online web series for a very long time. Like they were kind of the gold standard. Um, and then after they got bought out by Warner Brothers um, was rumored to not know what to do with what to do with Rooster Teeth, which has finally led to this. Um,
Yeah.
so it is an interesting, and there's been a lot of talk about Rooster Teeth over the last couple of years of you know allegedly abusive and um, sexually charged environments.
Mhm.
So on the one hand, it's not super surprising that maybe maybe Warner Brothers decided to sweep it all under the rug, but also it is kind of a massive loss um, to like that kind of sphere,
Mhm.
um, and does further illustrate like how bad things go when like you go public and you let yourself be bought out by like these massive conglomerate corporations,
Mhm.
So it is disappointing. Um, I'm curious, like what a lot of that's gonna be done, like what a lot of like their properties are gonna be done with. I'm worried that it's just
Yeah.
going to disappear. But I'm really hoping not. I think that's it. Uh,
There actually one more thing. Um, it was announced last night, or maybe this morning. It might have been this morning. That the creator of Dragon Ball Z, Akira Toriyama, has passed away.
Yes.
At 68. Like it was very shocking for everybody. Like,
Yeah.
um, but I just felt like that's something that should be touched upon because, like, listen, I haven't watched a lot of animated, but I have seen a bit of Dragon Ball Z here and there, and I know how iconic it is for a lot of people. So, like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a loss. Um, Even as someone who only really watched Dragon Ball Z as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the only Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball in general that I've watched in the last few years is when everybody at work was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z Abridged,
Mm-hmm.
which is very like slapstick take on Dragon Ball Z. um, but that's really the only involvement that I've had with it. Um, but still, like a tremendous loss, especially in like that particular sphere in that
Yeah,
business.
the anime sphere, like, it's a huge loss, and like a lot of my friends were talking about how, the Dragon Ball series in some way was their gateway to anime, and I'm like, that makes sense because, like, it was geared towards children. It was fun, and it made you, like, appreciate that art form, and then you would want to go find other instances of that art form. So,
Right. Yeah.
it's a tremendous loss. So,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, we will end our news segment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Um, so let's move on into the goat. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them against each other on a poll on Twitter. I used to say TikTok, but I'm not going to do that anymore, guys. It's not worth it. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
work to put stuff on TikTok.
And like the algorithm keeps changing, so like you're not sure what's going to be able to get noticed.
Yeah, and I just don't feel like it.
That's valid.
So we're just gonna do it on Twitter and maybe somewhere else, undetermined, a website of some kind. So a little catch up from our redemption round, where you made me watch as a result of losing the previous batch of goat picks.
Mm-hmm.
You made me watch Miracle Workers season 3,
Yes.
which I finally got around to doing. Um,
All right.
Although I did have to cheat a little bit. So I watched. I watched. I think the first 5 episodes, and then I ran out of time and had to watch the last episode.
You didn't miss too much.
Yeah, I didn't miss too much. I got the general sense of the season, um, and I would say that I like it overall. I'm not crazy about it. I think a lot of the anachronisms work as much as they don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And like that particular pastiche of the Old West. Like there's a lot of things that do end up working, but a lot of the time I'm just like, okay, I get the joke. But it does wear thin sometimes with like the very
Oh yeah.
modern sensibility in the Old West. So like it was funny in the I think the second episode, where they meet Shay Mitchell, where like, hey, a Shay Mitchell sighting in the wild, still being vaguely sapphic, was very funny. And her like talking in like random Gen Z lingo. It's very good. It's just very good. And everyone treating her like she's got kicked in the head by a horse. Like, yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain character archetypes that I think end up working here, like Steve Buscemi and Daniel Radcliffe, and I don't want to butcher her name, but I'm gonna butcher her name. Um, but she feels like, especially when she's kind of been getting more noticed.
Geraldine Viswanathan?
Yeah, Gerald. Yeah, yes, yes.
I knew who you were gonna say, because I'm like, it took me forever to figure out how to say her name.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, she's been getting more noticed with Drive Away Dolls.
Yes, I'm
which
so
has been
excited.
very strongly received, especially her performance in that. And I think she's quite good in this as the kind of vaguely innocent wife ingenue. Like, yeah, it's a good performance from her. The entire season is ultimately made worth it by Daniel Radcliffe's high on snake oil burlesque show.
Yes.
I was like,
She'll be coming around the mountain.
The rest of the season can be dog shit. This has made it worth it.
Confession, I love this season. I mean, listen, it's not perfect. I totally agree with my friend Rob, who absolutely hates John Bass, because John Bass is my least favorite thing about any of the seasons of Miracle Workers, and especially so in Oregon Trail, because he's the husband, and he's basically a caricature of Trump. Like, that's basically what he is. And he's annoying. But one of the other main reasons I wanted you to watch this season was because I wanted your reaction to Daniel Radcliffe doing She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain, because I'm like, that's the best part of the season.
It's the peak.
And there were some people in the comment section when that episode aired that were like, I didn't know he could sing and dance. And I'm like, bitch, he's a Broadway bitch. What are you talking about? Like, I was like, also, this isn't him doing his full talent. Like, this is him being, oh, I'm going to be acting like I'm an idiot who doesn't know what he's doing, but I actually know what I'm doing.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But I think Radcliffe and Geraldine have like really good chemistry throughout the season. I also really enjoyed Quinta Brunson, like pre-elementary.
Yes. Her character's so great.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And it definitely is a reminder of like, oh, this is why she like has made it kind of big now.
Also, fun fact about season 3, the blonde woman that Daniel's character ends up getting, I guess, married to, I don't know if you'd really call it marriage, she's actually his partner in real life.
Oh, okay.
And they have a kid together. But yeah, fun little fact.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It took me a minute to realize who she was when I was watching initially, because I was like, because she changes her hair color for this show. So I'm just like, oh, it took me a minute there.
Right, yeah.
and I just revealed myself to be a major Daniel Radcliffe fanatic that I knew who his partner is and what she normally looks like. Anyways, we're ignoring that.
Anyways, yeah. But yeah,
But I'm glad you finally watched.
Yeah, I
for the most part.
enjoyed it overall. I'm not sure if I had just watched this season, that I would have been like, oh, I should watch the rest of Miracle Workers, right?
That's valid. If, to be fair, I watched the show season 1 and then I watched season 2 and you know what I mean? And so like I've seen it in its entirety as it aired. And so like now that I've seen the 4 seasons, I'm like, "Oh no, season 3 was my favorite." But I do think season 2 was probably the strongest season. It's just technically not my favorite cuz some of the jokes were not my kind of jokes. So I'm just like, whatever. But overall, it was story wise, it was probably the strongest. So if you ever go back, I'm not telling you have to, but if you ever, I just like Oregon Trail because it's so chaotic and funny. Like it's not the best written, but it's chaotically funny.
Right. That makes sense.
And the dynamic between Buscemi and Radcliffe is at its peak.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really funny.
Anyways,
yeah. So that's Miracle Workers. So we are going to move on to our actual goat picks here. So a little peek behind the curtain, a little inside baseball. Before we went on hiatus, we recorded an episode, and this is going to reflect in the rest of this episode, which ended up in massive technical errors that did not see the light of day. So we have technically recorded this once already, but that was like a month ago. Or maybe not. I don't know. I don't understand how time works.
If you're asking me to repeat my goat from however long ago it was, I don't remember it.
I am not asking you to repeat your
goat. Okay, because I'm like, I don't remember.
But if I remember correctly, I won the last goat pick. So you get to go first in whatever you want to submit to the goat this week.
Okay. Sure, sounds good. You're asking someone that barely remembers what they ate yesterday.
You do not have to repeat your goat pick. You just have to.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, I'm gonna go with what you said on saying that you won, because I'm like, sure, that sounds right. Whatever. Sorry, brain did not catch up with my words. Anyways, so my pick for this week comes from, there was some conversation on Twitter about television deaths or character exits that you like never really stopped thinking about, and it made me think about that life altering moment when I was a teen watching television and seeing one of my favorite characters die on screen. And so it was like one of the first character deaths I ever experienced. And so I'm going to talk about Degrassi, The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 11, Run This Town. Or Rock This Town, sorry. Rock This Town. And I'm talking about the death of J.T. York. It was very shocking. I just remember it being an episode of, these kids having a party, typical high school behavior. And JT's walking around the party trying to psych himself up to talk to Liberty about how he feels about her, despite the fact that he has a girlfriend. And he's, talking to his best friend. And his best friend's like, I don't know, dude, just like, whatever. Like, just make a decision, basically. He's like, make a decision. And so he decides he's gonna tell Liberty how he feels, and then he goes outside to, I forget why he goes outside. I should have rewatched the episode to like refresh my memory. But he goes outside, doesn't matter, and he gets stabbed in the back by some kids from a rival school. And he ends up dying, and like it's just one of those things that we were like, oh my god, like did that really just happen? And then Liberty comes out and he dies in her arms. Like that's just even more dramatic and sad. um but it's one of those episodes of TV that has always stuck with me. Like I said, I haven't recently rewatched this episode, and I could tell you exactly what happens in the episode without having rewatched it. But yeah, season 6, episode 11, Rock This Town, Degrassi, The Next Generation. Oh.
Nice.
Starting off great.
Starting off great. The funny thing is, I watched Degrassi when I was a teen. I think I watched it in like 04 to 05 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot legitimately tell you a single thing about Degrassi.
Oh, it's my comfort show. I love it so much.
It's a show that I know I watched, and was like minorly formative as like a young queer person.
Mm-hmm.
Could not tell you a single thing that happened on that show.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But so my pick for this week, I was thinking about the last episode that we're going to talk about of True Detective Night Country, which is very cribbing like the X Files in a lot of ways, and very specific episodes of the X Files, which has kind of been in the conversation since the season premiered, and it did have me thinking really strongly of the episode that I'm going to nominate this week, which is the X Files season 1, episode 8, entitled "Ice," which is basically, what if the X Files did John Carpenter's The Thing?
Mm-hmm.
Where Mulder and Scully are sent to investigate a remote Alaskan research outpost, which is basically the same kind of outpost that's in True Detective Night Country.
Mm-hmm.
And basically to see what's going on after it's gotten dark. And lo and behold, is being haunted and hunted by a parasitic alien life form, very similar to the one that is in The Thing. And a lot of the story beats from that merge of who is it in? Who can we trust? How does that paranoia spring forth in the tapestry of barren Alaskan frozen wasteland? you know? Um, and it's buoyed really. It's an episode that's buoyed really nicely with some guest performances from Xander Berkeley and Felicity Huffman, to name a couple, who do really well as the tension starts to ratchet up and fingers are being pointed at each other, and who is the one? Who is the one we can't trust here? And of course, it's filled with lots of Mulder alienisms. That all kind of makes it into a very fun and suspenseful episode of the X Files that even at the beginning emerged as like very fun, very well done monster of the week. Um, so that's my pick for this week. The X-Files season 1, episode 8, Ice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I need to watch the X-Files.
You really
at some
should.
point.
You really should.
It's been on my list alongside Buffy the Vampire Slayer for so long.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like I have to be like, okay, you need to start this. You're going to like it, but I have to psych myself up for it. Like I know I'm going to like those two shows. I know I am. They're right up my alley. Will I start them? Who knows?
The X-Files is such a fun show because it's one of those shows that's like emerged as like it can't be done if any cell phones exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which was like the fun thing when like it came back a few years ago for like its
Mm-hmm.
revival seasons, and it's like, oh, we have to continually find a way for Mulder to not have a cell phone. So it's a show that is so perfectly of its time. Yeah, so it's such a fun show. I don't know a single person who's watched it who is normal about it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not capable of happening, I don't think. Um, but God, just what a fun show! Like someone was talking about this on Twitter the other day, and they were talking about how the X Files is a really good example of like the classic method of like television storytelling, where you
Mm-hmm.
can have like 22 episodes in a season, and then one season will be like, and we just did a Rashomon episode. I don't know.
Right. When you have that many episodes, you're allowed to have silly, ridiculous episodes that don't tie into anything else in the season. Like,
Yes.
that's the purpose of having such long seasons. It's what we're missing with those 10, 13 episode seasons now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not allowing us to have fun. We need just a little bit of ridiculous to break up that intense drama you got going on.
Right, right. Well, that's part of the reason why I always loved Legends of Tomorrow. Because they were like,
Mm-hmm.
give us 16 episodes, and we'll give you one where we're all fucking puppets. This is what I will provide to you.
My roommate and I are continuing on our quest of finishing Riverdale. Um, we're almost done with season 2, and that's one of those shows that like, yeah, their seasons were about 13 episodes, but like there's so much ridiculous in it. You have a good time no matter what episode it is.
Right, right.
So, TV shows, I mean, there is a place, like, obviously, for intense dramas, like those miniseries. Like, absolutely, you can be completely intense. Like, that's your point. Like, you're a miniature series. You're not going to last very long. You have to get it all done. But these other shows that take themselves way too seriously are taking the fun out of television. Like, just be ridiculous for a minute.
Right, yeah. Uh, so those are our picks for this week. Again, you can vote for these on Twitter, and be sure
Mhm.
to like and share us on whatever other social platform you're currently using. If you're not still on Twitter, which I understand, be sure to hit us up at not on the TV podcast at gmail.com with anything you want to send us, including goat submissions of your own. So without anything else, let's move on. This is the main part of our show.
Let's go in the garden. You'll find something waiting right there where you left it, lying upside down. When you finally find it, you'll see how it's faded.
So our first show for this week, we are continuing our Adventure Time rewatch with season 7. In the first little mini-series event that Adventure Time did, entitled Stakes, which ran from episode 6 to 13. So what did you think of Stakes?
I enjoyed it. It was a nice little romp in the woods, literally a romp in the woods. It was fun to see Marceline be mortal for a little while, but also realize that, maybe being a vampire isn't so bad. It has its perks, like, I don't know, protecting my friends from crazy old vampires I killed years ago. um, it was a nice, fun little adventure. I also, one of the moments that sticks out in my brain is from the beginning when Jake is sitting there with Peppermint Butler, and he's telling him what each of the vampires looked like, and he's like, one looked like this, and the Peppermint Butler would turn around a picture of exactly what Jake said, and he goes, no, that's not it. Then just be like, bro, that's literally what you said.
Well, there would be
Like,
ridiculous things. It'd be
it was
like,
so good.
what was it? It was like uh, a cake pop dressed in drapes, and
Yes.
what was it like? Uh,
The one that looked the most like what it was, he goes, a stop sign, but he looks angry, but it looks angry, um, and I think he said, and has hair or something like that.
it was
And he drew it, and he's like, yes, that's it.
it was oh, it was like an angry stop sign coming out of a loaf of bread.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. Yes, an angry stop sign coming out of a loaf of bread. But it's just it made you appreciate the humor that is Jake.
Yeah.
He's the comedic break when some of the storylines get a bit too intense. He's like, oh, by the way, have you laughed yet today? All right, here you go.
Yeah.
The whole burping on people. He's like, but our parents burped on us, and she's like, that doesn't do anything. I think they just wanted to burp on you. It's just like, oh man. I was like, man, I love these characters so much. Um but yeah, it was very interesting to see also how Marceline became a vampire.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a nice little break from the usual, oh, we have a new storyline every episode.
Right. For me, I've always felt like it was fun but underwhelming. But like you said, a lot of this is very enjoyable. But a lot of it's like, hey, did you know about Marceline's past as a vampire hunter? And it's like, and that is not a question or an answer that I've ever sought. No.
They're gonna give it to you anyway, though, Drew.
Yeah, they're gonna give it to you anyway, which is part of the problem. And then the rest of it, because here's my problem with this is that it's supposed to be a series focusing really intently on Marceline, but you spend so much time focusing on the other vampires, like just as a framing for most of this miniseries, that Marceline feels a little short shrifted some of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, I get it. Can we hurry up with these vampires, please? You know, is that the Monty Python and the Holy Grail thing of like, can we get a move on? Like, I
Yeah.
get it. There's a lot of these vampires, and they're super dangerous, and we're hunting them. I just want to be done with this part, kind of. Because I don't know what, like, it doesn't add anything, you know? And that's kind of how I feel about, like, Marceline as a vampire hunter in general. It's like, I don't know what this contributes. Like, it's fine, but I didn't need it.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy a lot of the uh, Marceline and bubblegum scenes in this. Like a lot of like you know, when Marceline bursts into Bubblegum's house with the tree, and like they have that really fun banter of like, I don't think you'd make a good blonde,
Yes.
or like Marceline's dream of her and Bubblegum
I love
domestic and
I
old.
love Marceline. I also love Marceline realizing that she feels love towards Bubblegum. Like that was a nice little bit with this as well. Like she's like, "Oh, I feel love. I feel love for her."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, "Good job.
Good job.
Good job. You figured it out." Now she needs to figure it out because you two are so oblivious. I love
Yeah,
it.
and they're so adorable. Like there's that moment where Marceline's like, um, what was that? I had a dream about you. I was old, but you were still nice and pink. And Bubblegum's like, you think I'm nice? And it's like, oh my god. It's all very cute. Um, Also, like Bubblegum putting Marceline over her shoulder and like bursting into the castle, um, is one of the most romantic things I think a show has ever done. Like, it's just very good. But like,
I honestly I love Princess King Ooh. Like again, Rogue, figure out your gender. But he's like, wait, but they didn't vote for you. And she goes, a monarchy's not a democracy. And I'm like, yes, it's not.
right? Well,
I'm like, girl, you could have stormed the castle at any time. I'm so glad we're finally here.
right. Well, that's one of my other things. It's like, um, a lot of this feels like just getting back to status quo. You know, it's like, oh, we're getting back, like we're kind of getting Marceline back to zero, kind of, and we're getting Bubblegum back to her castle. It's like, but it felt so much more interesting for Bubblegum to not, you know, like I wanted there to be more of like Bubblegum not as a princess, you know.
Yeah.
But this had different priorities than what I wanted it to have. One of the standouts from this continues to be like the song that Marceline sings. Um, well, Marceline and her mom sings of
Yeah.
oh, let's go to the garden. Um, Everything stays is what it's called, and it's just a really good song. Um, Also, Marceline's mom is voiced by Rebecca Sugar, who created Steven Universe and wrote a number of Marceline centric episodes.
Okay.
So that was really nice. And Rebecca Sugar, I think, does a really good job voicing Marceline's mom. It just has like that really soothing, like mom quality. Um, that's really good. but like Marceline's reprisal of everything stays at the end of the miniseries. I think it's just incredible. Like it's really like it has like that wonderful timbre of like a Marceline song, but done slightly different. I remember this came out in like the end of 2015, and it had like and it's kind of reflected in the song where it has the same idea that would like kind of be explored again with Star Wars: The Force Awakens, of like time is kind of cyclical, things that happen again, and we just keep seeing the same things kind of happening again, which kind of felt very emblematic of 2015, especially as we were going into 2016. It's like, oh, we're just doing the same things over and over again. And that felt like a really big. It's one of the things that I continue to appreciate about stakes.
Yeah.
The kind of acknowledgement of like how weird the passage of time truly is. I feel like I'm sounding more negative on this than I truly am. But one with that being said, one weird thing about this is the continued information about the Ice King and his involvement with vampires. And I either needed more of that or less of that, you know? Like, I either needed more exploration of, like, what Simon's deal was with vampires and how he got wrapped up in that, or I needed none of that. You know? The weird, like, middle ground we're in this, in these episodes of, like, oh, he knew the woman, I guess. Unhypnotizable Ice King knew her in some way and served her, but that's all you get. That's all you got. It's like I need more than that. I just that's not gonna get it. Come on. For our next episodes, we are going to be talking about season 7, episodes 14 and 15. The more you mow and the more you know, which is just billed as one big episode. Episode 19, Blank Eyed Girls, and episode 21, A King's Ransom.
All right.
So we are moving swiftly along into the season. We are actually almost done with the season.
Yeah.
Because there are only 26 episodes.
Oh, unlike last season, which had like 5 million.
Yeah. I've said this, but as we go along, these seasons do get shorter.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's next episode. So let's move along into our next show, which is we technically wrapped up Dimension 20 Fantasy High, and we can let's take a minute to kind of rehash what we said in our lost episode about the end of Fantasy High. Which is, I think we were mostly positive on it.
Yeah,
we were largely positive on it. It was a good enclosure to.
I had felt like the battle sequence went on a little long, but you were like, it was fine.
It was fine. Yeah, that's very classic D&D, you know. but I'm sure we'll return to Fantasy High one day.
I feel like we will probably do a quick recap of season 1 of Fantasy High before we start, the next season of Fantasy High, if we ever do go back to Fantasy High.
Right. Yeah, because I've been watching sophomore year, and I was kind of like, did I just remember? Am I just misremembering how long this season felt? And it's like, no, it did really feel long. Because the episodes are so much longer. I think every episode's like
Oh,
2.5
okay.
hours long.
Oh, geez.
It's like, okay, it is really long. It's long and it feels
Take it to
long
the point.
because it's live. It's live on Twitch.
Right.
So there's no editing. There's no cutting down counting of rolls and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So it both is long and feels long.
Nice.
But we're going to be carrying on with Dimension 20. We're kind of, at least right now, going along chronologically to the next season, which is a standalone campaign that they did. And the reasoning for this was basically they knew that people weren't going to wait for a year for another Intrepid Heroes campaign to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew they had to give people something else, which is how this campaign started, which is the second season of Dimension 20, Escape from the Bloodkeep. This is episode 1, Welcome to the Dark Side. And so this is basically a riff on Lord of the Rings.
Oh, it totally is.
Lord of the Rings, if told from the perspective of the big bad guys in Mordor, basically.
Yes. So I'm gonna be dead straight with you. I watched, the first episode, and I tried to figure out the character names and what kind of creatures they were, but I'm already gonna tell. I can already tell that it's gonna take me a couple episodes for me to get everyone straight in my brain. They're all interesting, definitely, but I'm just the only two I can physically picture in my brain right now is, and this is not really what she is, wet elf. Because the way she describes it, I don't know the character's name. I just know that. And then and then Lilith, who is the spider character, what spider druid, whatever. And I'm like, the only reason I remember that she's a spider is because oddly enough, the person playing her makes me think of a spider. And so it fits.
Yeah. So I think this is a very good table, where just, and then this is both to help you and to kind of go through this, where you have Matt Mercer playing Leland, who's basically the Witch King of Angmar from Lord of the Rings,
Yes.
And Matt Mercer, if you don't know, and for anyone listening who doesn't know, is the GM for Critical Role, which is another very popular and successful online actual play series that has been running since 2015, I think. They're still currently running. So he's very.
I hear it talked about.
Yeah. So he's very prolific. He's just if Dimension 20 has a rival, it's Critical Role. And Matt Mercer is kind of like the same thing as Brennan, where like they're kind of referred to as forever DMs. Where like they're always just like in the slot of like being the game master for like that season or campaign or whatever. And so it's rare for him to like be in the player slot.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing his face. I'm looking at a picture. I'm like, oh, that guy. Okay.
Yes,
I know who you're talking about. Okay.
And then you have Erika Ishii, who plays Lilith, the spider lady.
Yes.
And to me, Erika is like honorary Intrepid Heroes because they have been on so many different campaigns. Like they have been on several Dimension 20 campaigns.
Okay.
And just as a footnote, Erika is gender fluid and basically uses any pronouns you want to give.
All right, cool.
You know, she, her, they, them, he, him. They kind of go by everything.
Good to know I wasn't entirely incorrect.
Yeah.
Saying she.
Well, a recent season of Dimension 20 had Erika's pronouns as she, her. So
okay.
It is that weird thing of like, how do I when like your pronouns are everything? Because like for you and me, our pronouns are just they them, you know. So it's like
yep.
I have a very clear sense of like what I want to be called and what to call other people. Which is no disrespect to Erika because they're great. And
Maggie, I know Maggie.
Yeah, Reka Shankar playing Maggie, the daughter of the Dark Lord.
No, the girlfriend.
Well, she's the daughter. It's weird. This is like the weird.
Or did I miss something? Because I was like, all I heard was girlfriend. You know, she's always like making the comments where she's like, you know, you think that being the love of his life, you tell me some things.
Well, yeah, she's the girlfriend of the current Dark Lord, and she's like the daughter of. This is like weird Lord of the Rings lore. Where like canonically she's the girlfriend of Sauron, but like the daughter of it would be like goofy Silmarillion shit. You know? But it's like the old Dark Lord she's the daughter of. And
got you. Okay.
The funny thing about Reika that I learned while watching the behind the scenes featurette for the season is that she was originally asked to be on Dimension 20 as part of the like Intrepid Heroes campaigns. And she said no because she had never played D&D, which is how I and then I imagine they asked Allie Beardsley after this because Allie also had never played D&D. So it is funny seeing her come back here, you know, to do D&D.
Right.
Just like a year later. You know, and then you know, you have Ify Nwadwe who's playing Marcus, a kind of Sky Captain of Tomorrow, Dark Sky Captain of Tomorrow, basically.
Yeah.
And he is the current host of Actually, which is a self-described pedantic trivia show on Dropout.
Okay.
And then you have Mike Trapp, who's playing Sakbar, who's the kind of Beastmaster, in charge of all the dangerous creatures. And he was the until recently former co-host of Actually. And then Amy Warpole playing Effink, which is just backwards for knife. Just
Yeah,
knife
I
backwards.
realized that. I'm realizing that.
And I think it's like some amalgamation of Galadriel and Arwen.
Yeah.
Some weird amalgamation of those two characters.
Who are on opposite ends of the spectrum, so like that's what makes her character that much more chaotic. Um, you're like, which side of you are we getting in this moment?
Right. But I love the detail of like she just thought wet was like really hot and mysterious, and she just ran with it.
I can already tell, like after this first episode, that I'm going to enjoy the dynamic between Maggie and Matthew Mercer's character, because she's constantly chiding him for making it all about him.
Oh God. Yeah, no.
She's like, "Oh, here we go again, centering you in the story."
It's so good.
And I'm like, this actually makes this a little more enjoyable. Not that it wasn't enjoyable to begin with, but
Right.
I also, one of the other moments that like really still sticks in my head. Granted, I watched this morning. But there's the moment they realize they have to go back into the library, and Marcus is like, "Oh, I'm just gonna stay out here. You guys can go in there." And they're like, "Oh, no, 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 no! You're not staying out here. If we have to go, you have to go."
Mm-hmm.
They're like, and Lilith is like, "Yeah, we are not splitting up." Like, not at all. I also enjoy that Lilith uses her children as pawns in like whatever scheme she's got going on.
Yes.
She's like, "Oh, right, I have about 10 million children. Let me just use some of them for this thing." And her kids just go with it. They're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds about right."
Yeah. Well, because I think the thing is like, if her kids weren't in the fortress, in the Bloodkeep, they would just be like wandering about in the forest,
That's true.
So it's like, well, we're already here. We're gonna be here, so it's might as well. I did love the joke at the beginning of her just eating orcs and not realizing it.
Yes.
And just blaming it on they ran away. But she very clearly ate them. Like it's very funny, and I really like the voice that Erica does for for Lilith. Like just the kind of
Oh my god, it's so good.
it's like slimy and monstrous, but like alluring, and it's like there's a lot going on there.
I forget the context, but there was like a moment where like everyone else was like freaking out, and Erica's just like, "And Lilith just sips her wine," and I'm like, I love that.
It's really good.
She's just, honestly, she's the epitome of a Scorpio. Like, she's such a Scorpio. Like, chaos might be raining around her, and she's like, "I'm living for this. Let me just live in my glory here right now." Like, I love what's going on in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
She's the real one. I'm already like loving Lilith. I think Lilith is probably gonna end up being my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Obsessed.
Yeah. I should say at the beginning, of this season. Brennan has a very clear endpoint for this season.
Obviously.
And I want you to know now. I'm not going to tell you what it was or how we're getting there. But it does not happen.
Surprising no one. It does not happen.
It does not happen. I look forward to us getting there, but yeah. It's very funny how much it doesn't happen. But yeah. This is gonna be it's gonna be a brisk season. It only has 6 episodes, I think.
Yeah, it has 6.
So it's really fun.
Because I'm on the YouTube playlist right now, so
yeah. But still has like the same flow that like Fantasy High had of like role play and battle episodes and flipping back and forth.
Well, yeah, I mean, I imagine since it is a side quest, it's not meant to be long. And so like it's clearly going to be like, oh, quick little adventure here. One done, and yeah, like it's going to feel like one and done.
Yep.
I'm very intrigued to see where this goes.
Well, and like of course, like Brennan's like second time out of the gate, he does a like Lord of the Rings mashup, like a Lord of the Rings riff. Like, of course he does.
Of course.
Like, it's just so distinctly Brennan's shit.
I love the way he described the Dark Lord, just exploding. He's like, he just exploded. I'm just like, I mean, it's so funny. Like, I know it's intentionally funny, but I'm like, also it felt like it was unintentionally funny. Like, that is the magic of Brennan.
Yes, absolutely. But more on Escape from the Bloodkeep next time. So our next show for this week is Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is the live-action remake of the anime series, which is now streaming on Netflix. You watched all this, as I understand. I only got around to watching an episode and a half of this. And so what I'll say off the bat here is that if it does feel like Avatar, it feels like The Last Airbender, just like boiled down to like its barest components, right?
Yep.
Like it's not a bad adaptation, I don't think.
No, it's not.
It's a lot of the nuance, I think, has been stripped away from it. There are things that I enjoyed in this first episode, in these first pair of episodes, I should say. I really enjoyed how much we see of Kiyoshi in these first 2 episodes, which I wasn't expecting. And I just really love that character from having read the books. And just kind of how comical it is that she is 7 feet tall, which is, yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
But like, just like, basically starting off the show with Kiyoshi fighting, like that felt like a good choice. I'm not a purist by any stretch of the imagination, but Aang flying without a glider is sick and wrong. It's just sick and
Yeah.
wrong. I don't know what else to say about that.
It, it, I'm also not a purist. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the series. I do feel like it felt like they moved on from each of the kingdom areas, way too quickly. But again, when you have 8 episodes and you need to get through all 4 books, so to speak, of the first season, like I get it. You have to do your water kingdom, your earth kingdom, your fire nation, and then end with or whatever. I forget what order they did it in. My brain's tired.
I think it was.
But you have to get through all
Yeah,
of them.
I think it was.
I think it started with air,
It was. Well, it
water,
was water.
fire was
It was
last.
water, earth, fire.
Right, and the last 2 are air. Never mind. Whatever, because
Well,
in the last 2
there's only
episodes,
3 episodes. I mean, there's only 3 seasons.
No. I'm talking about like how the season's broken up. There's 2 episodes of.
Okay.
You can tell by the symbols behind the title in the title sequence. They go through the different symbols, and so like I'm trying to remember what order they go through the different symbols. I think it ended with air because at the end they're in the North Water. They're in the Water Nation of the North, Northern Water Tribe. But Avatar Aang really like takes on being the Avatar like a lot more. Anyways, whatever, doesn't matter. I do feel like a bit of the story was a bit rushed. I felt like you said, it felt very bare bones. Like they were just like, oh, here's the main plot points that we need to touch on, and that's about it. I wish we could have spent a little bit more time with Jet, and his band of ruffians, as I like to call them. That's not what they are, but like I like to call them that in my head. Because I do like that character, and I do like what he brings to the dynamic of Aang, Katara, and Sokka. Like they all kind of like fight with each other when Jet's around because Katara wants to trust him, and Sokka is wary of everybody, and Aang is just like, I don't know where I stand on this situation. So like I wish they would have delved a little deeper into that. I do enjoy that we got to see kind of a duality of Aang and Katara and Zuko and Iroh, because those dynamics are my favorites on the show, on the animated series. Like I love Iroh and Zuko, so like I'm glad we got to see quite a bit of that in this first season. And you get to see just like the the deeper motives behind both of their characters. But I still feel like it was missing that extra magic that the animated series has. Like it wasn't terrible by any means. I really enjoyed myself. I'm willing to watch the next 2 seasons. Like I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to, based on the way the creators were talking in interviews and things. But yeah, there were elements that I felt were missing.
Yeah, I think it's missing a lot of like the whimsy that the animated series had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like there's a sense of fun that I don't think is fully present here. The way that I've been thinking about this is, it feels like if we were standing on like separate sides of like a stained glass mirror or stained glass window,
Mm-hmm.
and like I looked at you and I was like, I can kind of see the you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like distorted. It's not like really
Right.
uh fuddled, but like I'm not really seeing the full you know? And like that's kind of how I feel
Right.
about this.
I feel like the only bit of whimsical that we do get to see is when Aang comes in contact with, why is his name? Hold on. The name is like escaping me right this second. But like we see a bit of that because he forces Aang to go through a series of trials that are haha funny, which aren't really that funny. Um, but it's still somewhat whimsical. So and I don't want to mess this up because I know, why am I not thinking of the character? Like, why can I not think of the character? It is the guy that is in charge of Amashu. I just can't think of the guy's name,
Oh.
and I don't know why it's still not coming to me.
King.
But they're on Amashu. They're in Amashu, and he knows Aang from his childhood, and he forces Aang to like do these ridiculous things, and Aang's like, "Oh, are you putting me through like is this a test?" And he's like, "Ha ha 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 ha, yes." And it's just like, you're trying to be whimsical, but it's not landing because this is not a whimsical show. Like, you're making it too serious.
Yeah.
Which is not a terrible thing, but
yeah. Yeah. But so some other things I'll say is that I think a lot of the core performances are pretty good.
mm-hmm.
I like Gordon Cormier as Aang. Ian Ousley as Sokka was surprisingly good.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Sun Hyung Lee, I think, had to really grow into that role as Uncle Iroh. Like, in the first episode,
Mm-hmm.
I was not feeling that as Iroh, you know? And I think part of that's the writing for it.
Yeah, definitely the writing, because by the end of the series, you're like, oh no, that's Iroh. Like, that is Iroh. I feel like he did a very strong job of it. I really felt like he showed that side of Iroh that loves Zuko because of the things that Zuko did for him when his son died.
Mhm.
And like he believes in Zuko where other people don't. Like, you start to see those layers of him, and I think that's when you really get a glimpse of the acting ability of him as Iroh. But yeah, that first episode's not a good impression of it,
Yeah, and I
unfortunately.
think he does a better job of it in the second episode, where more of like the Irohisms start to come through. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
more like joviality, like, oh, here's some tea, here's some here's some food.
No, literally, like, I forget what episode it is that they show Zuko being banished and Iroh deciding to come with him, and he's like, "I have everything I need," and Zuko's like, "What are you talking about, bro? You're like leaving your entire like home behind to go on this boat with me, and you're not being forced to do it." And he's like, "I have lots of tea," and it's just like, yes,
Good, good.
yes, there is Iroh, there he is.
Yep.
Um, the other performance that I was really, really, that I really, really enjoyed was Ken Leung as
I
Zhao,
was just about to talk about
um,
this.
because he does a very good job of playing this character who is very self-serving and very ambitious, but also stupid because he's so ambitious. Um, like, he does a phenomenal job of showing those nuances.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I'm not sure what show Ken Leung believes that he's in, but I don't think it's this one. He's giving a very odd performance, especially when we meet him in this, like when we meet him in the second episode. Um, I do not get his acting for this. And like Ken Leung has already said that he thought he was auditioning for Blue People Avatar, and not Avatar: The Last Airbender. And Ken Leung is an actor that I greatly enjoy in general. From Lost. But yeah, kind of baffling.
I mean, I know him more for Lost, but I also really loved him on The Night Shift. So,
right,
but yes,
right. Yeah, just a weird, weird acting
think
performance
honestly,
for them.
I think again, some of these actors, they need to like grow into the character. And I think Ken Leung's performance is kind of is another example of that. Sorry, my brain is just like not coming up with words. Is another example of that, because as the season progresses, you start to see just how intimidating he thinks he is. Um Emphasis on thinks, because here's the thing. Zhao is not an intimidating man. He is very much, he's so stupid. Like, he doesn't really know what's going on. He's relying on the backs of other people. Especially like in the one of the final episodes, he even reveals to Zuko, he's like, "Oh, you thought your father was the person that was my informant, or like my person that has been, helping me? No, it was your sister. Your father doesn't believe in you. He believes in her." And it's like the betrayal that he thinks he's dishing out. It's like, bro, you don't think that Zuko already realizes this? Like, he knows his father doesn't trust him, doesn't believe in him. Like, what else is new? But like, again, the performance of what's her name that plays Azula is pretty great too. Like, she plays that, she does a really good job of showing how very conflicted Azula is about her family. Like, she wants to be number one, but she also like doesn't necessarily hate her brother. She just is like, you're an idiot and I'm smarter than you. And I think she does a really good job of playing up the fierceness of Azula that people underestimate, and I really liked it.
Right.
But yeah, all around pretty great performances. There are some people that I'm just like, meh. Like, I'd forgotten that Danny Pudi was in this, and then I saw him and his performance, and I'm just like, you're not that memorable.
Right.
Like, um, I will say one of my favorite episodes was the one where they go into the spirit realm, where Aang accidentally takes Sokka and Katara into the spirit realm with him, because I liked getting to see Sokka interact with his father and Katara interact with her mother, and get to see those dynamics. Like, I thought that was really helpful for the characters to really like show audiences just what their motivations and maybe their setbacks are, as to why they can't fully like commit to who they should be.
Right.
But yeah, all around, it's a really well done series. I'm honestly a little shocked. Just a little shocked.
Yeah.
But yeah. And Sokka gets around to all the girls. Which was nice to see, because that was something, Sokka and food and Sokka and the ladies was like totally one of, the running joke in the animated series.
Yeah.
And it kind of still exists in this. It's not as funny, obviously, because again, they're not trying to be funny, which they should be, but that's a discussion for a whole other time.
I thought it was very funny. His interactions with Suki, whose only flirting technique seems to be, "What if I was off-putting and also vaguely threatening?"
Well, later on when he's with Princess Yu, it's like a totally different tactic to like flirt with her, and like it ends up working out because she is supposedly supposed to be marrying this other guy, and she goes, "Well, I don't want to be with him." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And she just like kisses him, and he's like, "Oh, got it." And I'm like, "You're an idiot." But like it's funny, but I don't feel like it's the same level of funny as the animated series. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's a little too serious. It's not funny enough, and I like I miss how many times this the animated series would make a crack at Soka with thinking with his stomach, because like it's such it's a nice break from the seriousness of the storylines. Like, oh, we're off fighting this foe. Oh, look, Soka has a handful of mangoes or whatever, kind of whatever he's eating. You know, I will say it was nice to see the Cabbage Man
Oh
freak
yeah.
out about his
Yep.
cabbages.
Always good to see the Cabbage Man.
But yeah, you know, it has potential to continue being good. We'll see.
Yeah. But we'll touch more on this next week when I'm able to see more. So let's move on to Star Wars: The Bad Batch, season 3, which has put out its first 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Which gets us back into things with Omega in captivity with Crosshair and their attempts to escape. Uh,
Yes.
and I like that. I like this kind of like the redemption of Crosshair as we see it in these first few episodes. I don't care for the fact that like we're trying to rehabilitate the Rise of Skywalker through this and like the
Yeah.
the scientific research that they're doing. Like, I don't need that. It was stupid. We all know it was stupid. Like, I don't need.
We all know it was
Don't.
stupid.
I put up with it when the Clone Wars was like, hey, what if we did the prequels but like made it good? And I was like, okay, I'll deal with that. But I'm not gonna put up with Star Wars trying to like make the Rise of Skywalker make sense because it's stupid.
Yeah. I like I said off camera, like I watched all 5 of these episodes and I remember broad strokes, you
Mm-hmm.
know, what happened. I will say I'm obsessed with Batcher, the creature. Like I'm obsessed with him. And I'm so glad she healed him. Like I'm listen, if there's an animal, I will be involved. I will be intrigued and involved. I'll be like that 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 right there. That's what I want.
Yep. Yep.
And I enjoyed that, like, you know, they're trying to get out, and Omega's supposed to be worrying about figuring out a way out for, you know, for her and Crosshair, and she instead is like, we also need to worry about this animal. Like, let's get him out too. They're hurting him. And I'm like, you have your priorities straight. Good
Yeah.
job. But yeah, it was, you know, a solid first few episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a
Um,
good start
you
for.
know, they reunite with we get to see them reunite, you know, so that's good
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah. 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 I am just very wary of like all of what feel like very gratuitous Rise of Skywalker references throughout those. Um,
We don't need to redeem the Rise of Skywalker because it doesn't
no,
deserve
it
it.
doesn't. I'm not gonna do it. But I will say that the appearance of the Emperor in this was sufficiently creepy.
Yeah, oh my god. I like hear the voice because again, I watched this while I was working, and so I wasn't like really like visually paying attention all that often. And like I heard the voice, and I look up. I'm like, no, just no. Can we just avoid that? Oh, right, he has to be part of this storyline. Never mind. Um, I just it creeps me out. Like it does.
Yep. Yep.
Which I guess kudos to them because they hit the nail, but
Yep. Yep. Um, but yeah, I'm curious like where the season is going to take us and um, how it's going to wrap up.
yeah, because isn't this the final
Yeah.
season? Mm-hmm.
So I'm very interested in that. But we'll see. Let's move on to Ghosts season 3, episode 4, titled Halloween 3: The Ghosts Who Wouldn't Leave.
I think this is probably one of the funniest episodes of Ghosts that we've had in a long time.
Yes. Uh,
I was laughing like practically the whole time.
because it is steering so heavily into like very classic sitcom tropes. You know,
Mhm.
like a lot of it felt just like very classic sitcom. Like in ways that like aren't we kind of don't do anymore.
Yeah.
Where like a lot of like sitcom comedy is very like straightforward. It's very
Mhm.
set up joke punchline. But here we got a lot of
Yeah.
like miscommunication and characters thinking one thing while another thing is actually happening, and um, like trying to enact schemes while also another scheme is going on, and yeah, misunderstandings, and like that's all so good.
It was so good. And it's funny because when Pete's widow showed up, I was like, oh, she better not fucking die in this house. And what happens? She freaking died in the house.
Oh yeah, it is really a delightful episode. Um,
It truly is.
yeah, with an episode that like really gets to like dig into its roots and like do things that I think like the British Ghost would have done, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. Which is a weird thing to say after like we watched some of that and like wasn't crazy about it. Um,
Yeah.
but like these are like the jokes that like it would tell with like this cast, you know.
Yeah, I loved it. The whole miscommunication about the dead body that was in the kitchen, like it cracked me up so much because and the way those people were thinking that they were going to murder them, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is going beyond what I thought was going to happen."
So good. And just like the overall cattiness of the ghosts.
They were like, the women were like, "Oh no, you don't want to listen to us. We're not going to tell you what's really going on." It's just like,
yeah, it's just so good. And then like that endings that the end stinger with like
oh, that Flower is still
Flower's
alive.
still like,
Well, technically not alive because she's a ghost, but you know what I mean.
yeah, because like of course Flower wasn't sucked off and just like got lost.
Yeah.
Like of course.
Which, prior to those last moments, I was like, all right, so we're adding Pete's widow to the dynamic because we're missing Flower, which again, that's going to be so interesting moving forward because Pete can't stand her. And so now they're stuck in the same house together. Like, I can't. It's just gonna be so much fun. But now we're like, wait, why did we add another ghost to the mix? Like, we have all our ghosts.
Right.
But also, I will say, I loved the line towards the end where Thor is like, "What about my loins?" And Sam responds, and why can't I think of his name? He's like, "I don't want to know why we're talking about his loins." And I'm just like, it's so funny because it still works 3 or 4 seasons in that he doesn't see them or hear them.
Yep.
It still works, and I love that.
Yeah. But there are like in-universe things of like, with how bored these ghosts are, I feel like someone would have stumbled upon the well in the last month. It's the same thing with like the previous episode with where they show us the painting of
yes.
and you're like, somebody would have seen that. Like you would have seen that in 100.
And believability, Drew.
Right. But it's like you would have, like, you or someone would have seen that in 150 years.
Yeah. There's like no way around it. They would have
had to have seen that.
I also love the continued dynamic of these ghosts come from different time periods, and so like sometimes, you know, like Pete made a reference to Jaws in this episode, and some of the other ones are like, what the hell was that? And he goes, Jaws. Oh, no, nobody. I'm like, bro, when would they have seen Jaws? When would these people from the 19th century have seen Jaws?
But again, they watch so much television.
I know.
Jaws would have eventually come on television.
If they're watching the right channel.
Right. Well, you know, honestly, they probably watch everything.
That's probably true. But it all depends on the humans because they can't turn the channel.
Right. I mean, let's be honest. Jay would have watched reruns of Jaws.
That's true. Jay would have.
Jaws would have come on TV. Like Jay is one of those people who Jaws comes on TV and he's like, "All right, I can sit and watch this for a little bit."
That's how my grandfather was with John Wayne. Like he'd be like, yeah, okay, I could sit and watch this. I'm like, sure, it's such a hardship from your sports to watch an old Western. So exciting.
Let's move on to our next show, which is Abbott Elementary, Season 3, Episode 5, The Breakup. There's so much to love about this. There's
Jacob.
So much good things in this episode. But yeah, like I think we should just start with like the A plot of Jacob not being able to break up with his boyfriend. The shot of Jacob not saying goodbye to his boyfriend, and then cutting over to his boyfriend, just looking angrier than anyone has ever looked in their life. It's so funny.
So funny because like he doesn't have any right to be that angry over a simple missed goodbye. Like,
but he is so upset. He's just so upset. Just sitting there clutching the steering wheel. Oh, it's so good.
Also, just the tactics that Jacob's like, I've tried doing this, and he hasn't figured it out, and and Gregory's just like, bro, I couldn't even figure that out. Like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna watch Taylor Swift Eras tour because it'll piss him off, and I'm like, that's not gonna cause him to break up with you, like. And then, like, it was great because he finally does admit that he wants to break up with him, and he's like, oh, and the boyfriend's like, oh, it's so great that, like, you're willing to be mature about it. And he's like, and then he, like, blows it, and we're like, Jacob, you shouldn't have said anything. Like, just don't open your mouth. Just don't open your mouth, bro. Just leave it be. Let him think that you did the grown up decent thing, and just let it go.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing about that is that now we don't have any gay couple rep on the show. Which is like the problem inherent with like having one gay person or like one gay couple on a show. Is that when you lose that, you kind of don't have any. You kind of don't have a whole lot, and you're kind of screwed.
Right.
So it would be in a bit. Abbott would be in a better position if they had another gay person on the show, but I'm not gonna tell them to write their show.
They have their quota, Drew.
Yeah, they do.
They have their diversity quota. Come on. I feel like that's kind of what shows aim for right now. They're like, oh, we have at least one queer person. Great, we're good.
We're good.
But yeah, you're right. Like, him, and I can't for the life of me remember his boyfriend's name. Breaking up, like, is showing a bigger problem of, oh, we have a gay character, but he's no longer in a relationship.
Yeah.
It just also seemed out of the blue too. Like, it would make more sense if they had like shown some like little signs here and there that Jacob and his boyfriend were having problems, but like it just suddenly appeared in this episode.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? You've been having problems for 7 months. Why haven't we seen this at work? It would have shown at work. Like,
yeah, I've
seen a coworker go through a terrible period with their significant other. It would have shown at your job. Like, it would have shown.
Yeah, especially with a character as neurotic as Jacob.
Exactly. Ugh.
Who has never once had a thought that he didn't immediately feel the need to verbalize.
Exactly. The other thing about this episode I really enjoyed was the Barbara and Ava dynamic that is building. Ava's really taking a turn this season, and I really kind of like it.
Yeah, this is like Ava's helpful season.
She's actually being oddly helpful in her natural way. Like, it's not her trying to be totally different than who she is. She's still somehow helping people by being normal, selfish Ava. Like,
yeah, I was thinking about this when I was watching the episode earlier of Ava is in that same camp that like Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec and Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine are in, of like characters who are so in like that very particular like personality type, and you can only break them out of that personality type so many times before you like lose that character, which like Ron Swanson and Holt were like constantly in danger of, where like they would do something like moderately out of character and it would like threaten to like break their entire character.
Right. Anytime that Ron Swanson was like carrying towards somebody else, it's like, oh, careful there, buddy. You're not the the apathetic Ron Swanson who doesn't care about
Right.
anything.
But the thing I like about this is the show's having Ava act in unusual ways for her, but are still very much in the mode of Ava. You know, there's still like very recognizably
Exactly.
like Ava things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, yeah, it would annoy Ava that like people are just mean to Barb for no reason.
I am that girl. I am that lady. No, I am that girl. I am that woman. No, it doesn't have the same ring unless it's I am that girl. Like that whole exchange was hilarious.
Oh, so good. And her joke at the end of asking Barbara if she knows the Moses song, and she's like, "Because you need to let my people go." It's so good.
It was so good. I was like, where's she going with this? Is she gonna make her sing more? And then she goes, "You need to let my people go." And I'm like, oh, she nailed
Yeah, that
it.
was so funny.
I just also think it's hilarious that Barbara, who is very, by Abbott Elementary standards, very conservative, is seen as too liberal for her church
Right.
ladies because she has earrings.
Well, has earrings, but is also, and it's implied because she is friends with Melissa and Ava.
Right.
Probably mostly Melissa.
Mostly Melissa, yeah.
I feel like Melissa would be a pretty heavy strike against you.
But that's why we love her. Like she's just, but yeah, no, it was very disheartening to see Barbara so like down on herself because she's that character on this show that no matter what the kids do or what the other teachers do, she always is herself. She's steady. She's never her boat never rocks. And here we see her with these church ladies, and suddenly she's so small and mild, and you're just like, that's not Barbara. So it's great to see Ava step in and be like, no, you need to like use that voice I know you have and tell them off for being assholes, yeah. Basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also need Janine to come back to the school. I get the whole stuff.
Right. Well, like,
I get it, but like I miss her in that dynamic in the school.
Yeah. Well, and the show's in the tricky position right now of like trying to find ways to still include Janine and like what's going on at Abbott, while also not being part of Abbott. And I think there's only so many different ways you can do that before you run out of ideas. There's only so many ways like that you can get Janine to come to the school for imagine nonsense,
like the substitute problems.
Yeah, like eventually you're gonna have to find something.
There's only so many times you can do that. And it's clear that the staff like miss her, and I'm not quite sure why this dynamic has been created for this season, but I don't.
We're clearly building to something.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what that is. What I have to imagine is like there's something coming to a head with like the school board.
Uh-huh. What if Josh Segarra's character is like secretly doing something like very bad, and like she's gonna discover it?
That's possible. Like, we haven't seen a lot of Josh Segarra in the last couple episodes.
No, but also he's just like he's a cheerful dude in a school district. Like, bro, you're up to something.
Yeah.
No one's that happy. Working for the Board of Education, nobody's that happy.
No.
Especially not in Philadelphia.
Oh. So, do you want to do Masters of the Air and Feud?
I can definitely talk about Masters of the Air. I don't know how far you are into Feud, but I could possibly touch a little bit on Feud.
So we can skip Feud.
Okay. Masters of the Air continues to be really well done. Fun fact, I realized today that Anthony Boyle, who plays Crosby in Masters of the Air, is his final episode of Masters of the Air airs next Friday, and his first episode of a new show called Manhunt airs on Apple TV that same day. And I'm like, Apple TV must have him in a chokehold because he's on like a lot of things right now with them, which is fine because he's a really good actor, and I really like what he brings to the character of Crosby. Makes him kind of the everyman amongst all these like big hero types, which is nice. It's a nice like change of pace, so to speak. It's very interesting to see World War II from the perspective of the fighter pilots. So, like, for example, in a previous episode, Bucky gets pushed onto a train to be taken to the prisoner of war camp in Berlin, or just outside of Berlin. And on the other track, he sees the cattle cars of Jewish people going past. And so, like, you see in his face, like, him trying to, like, comprehend what he's seeing. And that's an interesting way of looking at it. There's also one of the fighter pilots is Jewish. And so, like, to see his perspective of, I'm going to nail these Nazi son of a bitches because of what they're doing to my people. And like, he's done 25 missions, and he's been told you don't have to re-up, even though they've changed the requirements mid tour. They went from saying, oh, after 25 you could be done with your tour and you could go home. You know, most of the guys that he's flying with are under 25 on his 25th mission, and after his 25th mission, like, they say, oh no, actually you now have to go to 28 instead. And his commanding officer says, you know, Rosie, you could go home. Like, you've hit 25. Even though they changed up the thing, you would already hit 25. Like, it doesn't really affect you. And he's like, he thinks about it, and you can see in his face, like, he's like, no, I'm not gonna leave my guys, because they lose a lot of men. Like, that's something that I didn't really, I think, visualize about World War II. I mean, it's obvious a lot of people die, like, it's a big war, but the sheer number of fighter pilots that don't come back from each mission. Like, Crosby makes a comment in this most recent episode about how, or not this most recent one, I think it was the previous one. He makes a comment about how 30 people went out to bomb Berlin, and only 15, 30 planes went out, and only 15 of them came back. And then the next day they wanted them to bomb Berlin again, the exact same path, the exact same plan, whatever. And he's like, we lost 15 the last time, we only have 15 left. Like, we're not going to get any guys back if we do that. And so, like, it was very interesting to see it from that perspective. We also, in this episode, got to meet the Tuskegee Airmen, which was so cool. Ncuti Gatwa plays one of the Tuskegee Airmen, and I love him. So, like, it was great to get to see him in action. But the most interesting part of it is that these guys, you know, don't interact with white men because of the time period. They were their own unit. When they get captured as prisoners of war, they have to go to the same prisoner of war camp as everybody else. And it's a great moment for Buck to stand up and be the leader that he is. That's Austin Butler's character. And say, well, of course you can bunk with us. Like you're one of us, you know. Like it's very unifying and it's very poignant to see that moment, you know, occur. It'll be interesting to see how they finalize the war with these characters, who are obviously based off real men. And so, like, if you know anything about these men, which I really don't, beyond what I've kind of Googled of my own accord, a lot of the, you know, some of them are gonna die, some of them are not.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. We got to see them storm Normandy. Cross slept through all of it. Not intentionally. The guy was up for 72 hours. His commanding officer told him to go take a nap. He's like, dude, you've been up for 72 hours. And he wakes up and he's like, oh my God, what time is it? And they tell him the time and he freaks out. They go, 3 days later. And he's like, what? He's like, you slept for 3 days and it's fine. You needed it. But like, that's the moment that the war machine basically says to Crosby, you need to take a month off because we need you at your 100% because you're so good at what you do. And so it's very, I like Crosby. I think Crosby's probably my favorite character / person in this whole story dynamic. Because like I said, he's like an everyman. He's very much became a leader of his element in regards to fighter pilots. But he did so unwillingly. He did not go into it with management in mind. He was just like, I'm just gonna do my job. Like in the first episodes, he's vomiting into his helmet while they're in the air. So like he goes from vomiting in his helmet to being like the guy that creates the flight plan for all of the Normandy attack. Like that's insane. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they wrap everything up.
Right.
So it's been a good ride. I've enjoyed it.
Well, more on that later. Drew will eventually watch it. Let's move on to our next show, which is Wild Cards Season 1, Episode 8, Eternal Sunshine of the Therapized Mind.
What did you think of this episode?
I thought it was a lot of fun. My main problem with the episode is that this isn't how that works. It's basically how I feel about that.
Yep.
That isn't the way that.
That's not how any of
That's
this
not
works.
how hypnosis works. You can't hypnotize someone unwillingly. Like
right.
The reason people do things under hypnosis and when they're out of hypnosis is because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very core part of hypnosis, is that you can't get people to do something that they didn't want to do. You couldn't get someone to confess to a murder under hypnosis. Like that's just simply not the way that works. But if I can forget that that's not how hypnosis works, it's a very fun episode.
Right.
But it is extremely fast and loose with a lot of like psychiatry.
Mm-hmm.
and it's such an enjoyable
also
episode.
with the ethics of talking about things.
Right. Yeah.
There's not really any patient confidentiality going on in this episode, and that's a little irksome.
Yeah, and if I can overlook that, then I can appreciate how enjoyable this episode is. But if I can't, it's a real stumbling block.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
the dynamic between Maxine and I can never remember his name. Why is this a problem for me? I mean, it's a problem with everything we talk about, but that's beside the point. Especially with this show, I can never remember his name. But anyway, the dynamic between them, it's fun to see them like at each other's throats, annoyed with each other after having seen them working so well together for so long. And it does play into the whole therapy thing. And that part is fun, as long as we're not thinking about all the violations that are happening around them with this case investigation. It's fun to see them go through quote unquote therapy together.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I want to know what his painting was. That's the other thing. I want to know what his painting was. And she's like, "Yeah, we should just burn it," and I'm just like, "But I want to see it." Completely unrelated, but I want to know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've also liked that now that they know what to do with like the other detectives, Simmons and Yates, that like they're actually legitimately fun characters as part of this ensemble. Like I like Yates far more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I like that they're giving each of them advice on how to deal with their partnership. Like it's cute.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, whenever Yates needs to get away, she just says, I'm going out for ice cream." And he's like, "Ice cream?" He goes, "Listen, I vetoed a lot of other words prior to that." And you're like, then you're wondering, okay, what words was Yates wanting to use? And knowing her, they probably were very inappropriate.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that they figured out like what to do with those characters, because at first they were just like the disapproving, like side detectives, who were just catty for no reason, and now they're like, oh no, we actually know what to do with these people.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see them kind of become more accepting of Maxine amongst their midst. I did not see that coming. Like I did not anticipate that happening before like the last couple episodes of the season. But here we are, and Yates has kind of become friendly with her, and I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm overall really enjoying the season.
Has it been renewed?
I don't think it's been renewed, but it's hard to imagine it not being renewed.
Yeah, I feel like it's being well received. But then again, that doesn't mean anything these days. So, but I'm fingers crossed it does get renewed, because the dynamic between these characters is so fun, and there's still so much that they can do with them.
Yeah, yeah, and also Vanessa Morgan continues to just be great week in and week out. Like,
yes,
she is having a fucking blast.
Honestly, Maxine's comment to him about how, like, she's like, "Who do you talk to?" "Oh my god, do you talk to Mark?" And he's like, "I do not talk to my cat." And I'm like, "What's wrong with talking to your cat?"
All the time.
Like, here's me, a grown-up adult, saying, "Well, what's wrong with telling your problems to your cat? Like, your cat understands." Like, yeah, Vanessa, that's a moment like that. Like, you can tell Vanessa Morgan is enjoying
Oh, yeah.
herself. She's like, oh, I'm going to make this joke about a cat. Like, I'm going to go all in for it. While she probably secretly in her head is like, oh my God, I need to go tell my cat this thing. Like, you know that in her head, she's probably like, oh, I'm going to go tell my cat about my day. Like, that just seems like what's going on with that
Oh,
moment.
absolutely. So let's move on to our last show of the week, which is True Detective Night Country, episode 6, titled Part 6. So how did you feel about how this wrapped up?
I wasn't disappointed. I felt like it was a strong ending to the season. And I like that it kind of still left a few things up in the air, especially considering there's potential for, not that this show probably will, but like there is the potential that like if they wanted to, they could come back to these characters again. I also kind of like the open-endedness of that final moment, where you kind of have to decide for yourself, okay, is Danvers seeing her as a person, or is she seeing her from the beyond?
Right.
Because we know that she can. You know what I mean? Like there was kind of an openness to that. I felt. I don't know about you, but I felt like that. Like it could have been either way because of how Navarro was acting prior to quote unquote leaving. It could have been either option.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Also, scientists were bad. Who saw that coming? Everybody. The scientists were bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do like this episode presenting the idea of like you can save like your child one day, but it'll be at the cost of like 20 other children. Do you still do it? You know,
Yeah.
like classic like moral dilemma of like
Yeah.
you're okay condemning someone else's child until it is your child. Is the whole thing of that, you know, and kind of getting into this here of like, yeah, we poisoned an entire town, but we could cure cancer, you know.
Right.
So how much potential good outweighs substantive bad?
Right.
Which I think is an interesting concept to go through, especially in regards to science. When scientists have to take like hefty courses on just ethics, like basic ethics and empathy. Which like this is a perfect example of like why, because this is not something because like science can encourage sometimes a kind of very number space look at
Right.
things. I'm like, well, if we just you know study these like 5 people, we can save 5 million.
Yep. And that kind of sometimes flows into a bit of, like you said, like a bit of a moral quandary. Like, okay, 5 for 5 million, but what about the people that love those 5 people?
Right? Yes. Yes.
And that's and that's always been the case with science. Like you have to be able to separate the emotional from the logical. But I do feel like you have to keep a bit of that emotional there, which I think these scientists had kind of like squashed that completely. Hence the reason they went way off the rails. And like, polluted the town and like all these things, in the name of quote unquote science. But you ultimately have to be able to think about the big picture and ignore the people that are getting upset about the little picture.
Yeah.
And this show did a very good job of that.
Yeah, and it's also like classic literature of like the Frankenstein trope of scientists digging so
Who's really the monster?
Yeah, well, just Frankenstein in general. Of like
but still falls into who's really the monster.
Scientists digging so much into like this this answer for everything, this answer to cancer or Alzheimer's or life, death itself, and unleashing something dark and scary. Because like we do see that like part of the explanation that like Clark the scientist gives is that like they dug so much and like they were polluting the environment so much so that the ice becomes soft and malleable.
Right.
And it's like if there's anything living or if there's anything within that ice that can be unleashed. And that is like part of like theoretically what is going on. You unleash something dark and scary here. That is more like metaphysical, that kind of spread it out. So it's like, yeah, you did all this and you did it for the good of science and the good of mankind, but to what end, and like what actually are the outcome? What are the windfalls of this?
And I also really like that this show, the whole series, the whole season so far, the town has been in dark. It's been in, the night. It's been in the night. And when this case becomes a solved case, it becomes light again. I really liked that, like going from dark to light.
Yeah, it's really good.
Overall, I felt like it was a strong season. Yeah. I was like, can I really say anything else if I haven't watched all of the other seasons of this series? No, probably not.
But also, Nick Pizzolatto can eat a bag of dicks.
Facts. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good wrap up. I will say, and this is kind of something that True Detective has done in general, but like True Detective's tendency to be like, hey, supernatural, but also not supernatural, does grate on me a little bit. Of like,
yeah,
hey, this could have
the opportunity. With the exception of like seeing spirits and like talking to the dead, like they could have gone so far with the supernatural and like the faith belief system of the native people of Alaska. Like they could have gone so far into that and made it actually part of the case, like they had implying the whole time, only to just be like, actually, no, it wasn't any of this after all.
Yeah.
What? It was just some guys that were like, "Oh no, we're getting caught. Let's kill her." Like what?
Yeah.
I will say it was nice to see at the end of the episode where like she's talking to a recording. It was nice to see that kind of like harken back to the first season of the series,
Right.
but like it's one of those tiny little nods. Like this is an anthology series, but like we are connected.
Right. Also that time is a flat circle line.
Yeah.
Oh. But yeah. Overall, pretty good season.
I stand by Jodie Foster's not straight.
No.
That character is not straight. Nice try though.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
so that is our show for the week. Stay tuned next week for whatever we cover. We're gonna have a lot of stuff coming out. That is very intriguing. But until next week, Mads, where can we follow you online?
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at DorothyNYC89. And if you are on Tumblr and feel like hanging out with me over there, I talk a lot of fandom stuff over there. It's Mads World 15. So,
Nice.
Yep.
And you can follow me on Twitter at the Drew Koenig and on Blue Sky at Drew Koenig. And follow me all the other places with that same handle. You can follow the podcast on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky at Nondola TV Podcast. And you can email us at nondola.tvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, goat picks you have. Send anything in. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and YouTube. With whatever podcasting device you use. You can also take a look at our Libsyn feed, libsyn.com/NotAnotherTV podcast. It's our full episode directory. And be sure to leave a review and subscribe on whatever service you use. Every little bit helps. Till next week, please remember, dunk on the ocean, have your business. Don't get drowned by a whale. Goodbye.
Goodbye.